I'm Tiffany, 34 years old and a single mother to my 6-year-old daughter Lily. For the past few years, I've been working extra shifts as a nurse to make ends meet. Last Tuesday, I had to drop Lily off at my parents' house again because of an emergency shift. When I arrived early to pick her up, I heard screaming from inside. Through the window, I saw my parents towering over my crying daughter about dishes, while my sister's children laughed and pointed. In that moment, something in me changed forever. Before I continue with my story, where are you watching from today? If this resonates with you, please like and subscribe to support my healing journey. Growing up with my parents was never easy. They were strict and demanding, setting impossibly high standards that I could never quite reach. My younger sister Amanda, however, seemed to effortlessly meet their expectations. When I brought home a B+, they would ask why it wasn't an A. When Amanda brought home a B, they celebrated her achievement. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. I was the disappointment, the one who never quite measured up, while Amanda was their golden child. Despite their constant criticism, I worked hard and pursued my dream of becoming a nurse. My parents scoffed at my career choice, calling it a glorified maid with a slightly better salary. They had wanted me to become a lawyer or doctor, something with prestige that they could brag about to their country club friends. I met Jacob during my second year working at Memorial Hospital. He was charming and attentive, everything my parents never were. We married quickly, perhaps too quickly, and had Lily within our first year together. For a short while, everything seemed perfect. But when Lily turned 2, Jacob announced that family life wasn't what he expected. He packed his bags, moved across the country, and rarely contacts us except for the occasional birthday card for Lily. Suddenly, I was alone, a single mother with mounting bills and a demanding career. The financial strain was immediate and overwhelming. My salary as a nurse was decent, but childcare costs ate up a significant portion of my income. I downsized our apartment, cut out every unnecessary expense, and picked up extra shifts whenever possible. During this difficult time, my parents offered financial assistance, which I reluctantly accepted. They began making partial payments on my mortgage, a fact they never let me forget. What initially seemed like a gesture of support quickly revealed itself as another way to control me. Every family dinner became an opportunity for them to remind me of my failures. "If you had chosen a better career, you wouldn't need our help," my father would say as we ate. "If you had been more careful about who you married, you wouldn't be in this situation," my mother would add, shaking her head in disappointment. Meanwhile, Amanda's life seemed to unfold like a fairy tale. She married Jeff, a successful real estate developer, had twins named Tyler and Madison, and lived in a beautiful house in the suburbs. My parents never missed an opportunity to compare our lives, holding Amanda's choices up as the gold standard while treating mine as cautionary tales. Family gatherings became increasingly tense. Amanda's twins were treated like royalty, showered with gifts and affection, while Lily was often overlooked or criticized for minor infractions. I noticed how my parents would beam with pride when Tyler or Madison spoke up, but would quickly shush Lily if she became too excited or talkative. "Children should be seen and not heard," my mother would say, but this rule seemed to apply only to my daughter. The past few months had been particularly challenging at the hospital. Staffing shortages meant more overtime and unpredictable schedule changes. I found myself increasingly dependent on my parents for childcare, dropping Lily off at their house more frequently than I was comfortable with. Each time I noticed she seemed less enthusiastic about going, but I attributed it to normal childhood phases. Now I realize I should have paid more attention to these subtle signs. "Mommy, do I have to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house?" Lily had asked that morning, her voice smaller than usual. "Just for today, sweetie. Mommy has an important shift, but I'll pick you up as soon as I can." I had promised hurrying her out the door to make it to work on time. I never imagined that decision would change everything. The morning had started like many others, with me dragging myself out of bed after a grueling overnight shift. My colleague Maria had called in sick, and as usual, I was the one asked to cover. The hospital had been short-staffed for months, stretching all of us to our limits. I remember looking at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, noting the dark circles under my eyes, and wondering how long I could keep this pace up. Lily was still asleep when I went to wake her. She looked so peaceful that I hated to disturb her, but we needed to get moving. She rubbed her eyes and frowned when I told her she'd be spending the day with Grandma and Grandpa again. "Do I have to?" she asked, pulling the covers back over her head. I'm sorry, sweetie, but yes. Just for today. I promised, though we both knew it had become a frequent occurrence. As we drove to my parents' house, Lily was unusually quiet, clutching her stuffed bunny Mr. Flops tightly against her chest. When we arrived, my mother greeted us at the door with a tight smile. "You're late again, Tiffany," she remarked, checking her watch pointedly. "We had plans to take the twins to the park this morning." "I'm sorry, Mom. The hospital was crazy last night," I explained, feeling the familiar weight of guilt and inadequacy settling on my shoulders. My father appeared behind her, already dressed for golf. "Well, we'll have to adjust our schedule. Again." The emphasis on the last word made his displeasure clear. Amanda's twins, Tyler and Madison, were already there, racing around the living room in designer clothes that probably cost more than my weekly salary. They barely acknowledged Lily as she entered, too busy playing with what looked like brand new toys. "The twins are staying for the day, too," my mother informed me. "Amanda and Jeff have a charity fundraiser to attend." Of course they did. Amanda's social calendar was always filled with glamorous events, while mine consisted of hospital shifts and the occasional parent-teacher conference. "Lily, go play with your cousins," my father instructed, giving her a gentle but firm push toward the twins. I noticed how Lily hesitated, her body language showing reluctance. I should have paid more attention to that signal, should have asked why she didn't want to play with them. Instead, I was focused on not being late for my shift. "Be good for Grandma and Grandpa, okay?" I said, kneeling down to hug her. "I'll try to get off early today." As I headed for the door, my mother called after me. "We're having pot roast for dinner. You're welcome to join us if you can be bothered to show up on time." The subtle dig wasn't lost on me, but I was too tired to engage. "I'll text you when I know my exact end time." Throughout my shift, I couldn't shake an unsettling feeling. Between checking vitals and administering medications, my mind kept wandering to Lily. Had she seemed more reluctant than usual this morning? Was there something she wasn't telling me? By some miracle, the afternoon shift nurse arrived early, allowing me to clock out 2 hours ahead of schedule. I texted my mother that I was on my way but received no response. Unusual, but not alarming. Perhaps she was busy with the children. As I drove to my parents' house, I allowed myself to imagine an evening where I wasn't too exhausted to enjoy time with my daughter. Maybe we could stop for ice cream on the way home, have a little mother-daughter date. These moments had become rare treasures. I pulled into my parents' driveway, noting that Amanda's luxury SUV was still parked outside. As I approached the house, I heard it, shouting. My father's voice raised to a level I recognized from my own childhood. The sound sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. Instead of going straight to the front door, something made me walk around to the kitchen window first. What I saw through the glass froze me in place. My daughter stood at the sink, tears streaming down her face, surrounded by a stack of dishes that seemed impossibly large for such a small child to manage. My father towered over her, his face red with anger, while my mother stood beside him, arms crossed and expression stern. "Wash those dishes, you useless little brat," my father shouted, his voice clear even through the window glass. "Your cousins never cause problems like you." Speaking of the cousins, Tyler and Madison stood a few feet away, pointing at Lily and giggling behind their hands. Their perfectly styled hair and clean clothes stood in stark contrast to Lily, whose face was streaked with tears and whose small hands were red from hot water. Amanda sat in a chair nearby, scrolling through her phone, completely indifferent to the scene unfolding before her. I watched as Lily's small shoulders shook with silent sobs, her hands trembling as she tried to reach a plate at the back of the sink. She was standing on a stool that wobbled precariously, and no one seemed concerned about her falling. For a moment, I was transported back to my own childhood, standing in that very same spot, hearing those very same words. The familiar feelings of shame and inadequacy washed over me, but this time they were quickly replaced by something else: rage. Pure, protective rage. I don't remember consciously deciding to move. One moment I was frozen outside the window, the next I was bursting through the back door, the bang of it hitting the wall, silencing everyone in the kitchen. "Get away from my daughter, now!" My voice was so calm it scared even me. It was the voice I used in medical emergencies when panic wasn't an option. The room fell into shocked silence. Lily turned toward me, her face lighting up with relief despite her tears. My father, momentarily startled, quickly composed himself and straightened his posture. "Tiffany, what are you doing here so early?" My mother was the first to speak, her tone suggesting I was the one out of place. "What am I doing here? What are you doing to my child?" I moved toward Lily, who immediately scrambled off the stool and ran to me, wrapping her wet arms around my legs. "We're teaching her responsibility," my father stated firmly, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Something you clearly haven't done." Amanda finally looked up from her phone, rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting as usual, Tiff. They're just trying to help since you're too busy working to parent properly." Her twins Tyler and Madison continued to snicker, pointing at Lily, who was now sobbing against my legs. "She broke a cup," my mother explained, gesturing to a small dustpan in the corner that contained the shards of what appeared to be an ordinary drinking glass. "Actions have consequences." I knelt down to Lily's level, gently wiping the tears from her cheeks. "Is that true, sweetheart? You broke a cup?" She nodded, hiccuping through her tears. "It was an accident, Mommy. I was trying to get water and it slipped." "So you punish a 6-year-old child for an accident by making her wash everyone's dishes?" I stood up, keeping Lily close to my side. "Those aren't even her dishes. There are dishes from breakfast, lunch, and what looks like yesterday's dinner in that sink." My father waved his hand dismissively. "She needs to learn. The world won't coddle her like you do." It was then that Lily whispered something that made my blood run cold. Tugging on my scrubs, she looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes and said, "They always say I'm not good like Tyler and Madison." "What did you just say?" I asked her, though I had heard her perfectly. She glanced fearfully at her grandparents before repeating, "Grandpa and Grandma say I'm not good like my cousins, that I'm messy and loud and a burden." The word burden from a 6-year-old's mouth told me everything I needed to know. "This isn't the first time, is it?" I asked, looking between my parents. "You've been treating her like this whenever I leave her here." "Now, Tiffany, don't be dramatic," my mother began, but I cut her off. "Answer the question. Has this happened before?" The uncomfortable shifting of my father's weight and my mother's averted gaze confirmed my suspicions before they even spoke. "We raised you and your sister with discipline, and you turned out fine," my father finally said. "Today's children need structure and consequences." "I turned out fine." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I turned out constantly seeking approval I never get. I turned out feeling like nothing I do is ever good enough. Is that your definition of fine?" The argument escalated quickly. Years of suppressed feelings came pouring out as I confronted them about their favoritism, their conditional love, their constant criticism. "You've always treated Amanda like she walks on water while I can never measure up," I said, gesturing toward my sister, who had finally put her phone down and was watching the confrontation with widening eyes. "That's not true," my mother protested weakly. "We've always supported you." "Supported me by criticizing every choice I've ever made, by comparing me to Amanda at every turn, by treating my child like she's somehow less worthy than her cousins." "We pay your mortgage," my father thundered, his face reddening again. "You should be grateful for our support instead of attacking us." And there it was, the financial control that had been hanging over my head for years. The reminder that in their eyes I was still the failure, the disappointment, the one who couldn't make it on her own. "Grateful," I echoed. "Should my daughter also be grateful for being called a useless brat while her cousins laugh at her? Is that the kind of support you think we need?" I looked at Amanda, hoping for some solidarity, but she just shrugged. "You are being pretty ungrateful, Tiff. Mom and Dad help you out all the time. Maybe if you had made better life choices like me." "Like you." I laughed again. "You mean marrying rich and looking the other way while our parents emotionally abuse my child? Those kinds of choices." The twins had gone quiet now, perhaps sensing that the adults' argument had moved beyond the usual family tension. Madison even looked a little uncomfortable, glancing between her mother and me. "I think it's time for us to leave," I said, finally gathering Lily's backpack. "And I don't think we'll be coming back anytime soon." "Don't be ridiculous," my mother scoffed. "You need us. Who's going to watch Lily when you're working? Who's going to help with your mortgage?" "I'll figure it out," I replied, surprising myself with how certain I felt. But I won't let my daughter grow up thinking she's less worthy of love and respect than her cousins. I won't let her believe she's a burden. As we turned to leave, my father called after us. "You'll be back. You always come back because you can't manage on your own. You never could." His words followed us out the door, but for the first time they didn't pierce me the way they used to. Something had shifted inside me. Seeing them treat Lily the way they had treated me awakened a protective strength I didn't know I possessed. As soon as we got home, I asked Lily to bring me her backpack. Something about her behavior over recent months suddenly made sense, and I needed to confirm my suspicions. She hesitated before handing it over. "Am I in trouble, Mommy?" she asked, her voice still wavering. "No, sweetheart, not at all. I just want to understand what's been happening at Grandma and Grandpa's house." Inside her backpack, tucked between her coloring books, I found a small notebook with butterflies on the cover. I'd given it to her a few months ago to practice her writing, but what I found inside broke my heart. In her childish handwriting were entries that no 6-year-old should ever have to write. "Today Grandpa said I'm too loud. Tyler was louder, but he didn't get in trouble. Grandma said my drawing wasn't as good as Madison's. I spilled juice and Grandpa called me clumsy and made me clean the whole floor." Page after page documented small cruelties and double standards. Lily had been creating her own record of the mistreatment, perhaps not fully understanding it, but feeling its impact nonetheless. I sat down on her bed, pulling her close. "Lily, why didn't you tell me about these things?" She looked down at her hands. "Grandma said you have too many worries already, that I shouldn't bother you with silly stuff." Classic manipulation tactic. They'd effectively silenced her by making her feel she would be burdening me by speaking up. "Listen to me," I said, turning her to face me. "Nothing about you is ever a bother to me. You can always tell me anything no matter what." "Okay." She nodded, but I could see she wasn't entirely convinced. Just then, the doorbell rang. I wasn't surprised to see Amanda standing there when I opened it, but I was surprised to see her husband, Jeff, with her. He rarely attended family gatherings, often using work as an excuse. "We need to talk," Amanda said, pushing past me into the living room. Jeff followed, giving me an apologetic look. "There's nothing to talk about," I replied, keeping an eye on Lily, who had retreated to her room. "I think today made things pretty clear." Amanda paced the room, clearly agitated. "You embarrassed everyone with your dramatic scene. Mom's been calling me nonstop crying." "Good for Mom," I said flatly. "At least someone's crying for the right reasons today." Jeff, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "Tiffany, I want you to know that I agree with you." Amanda whirled on him. "What?" He raised his hands. "I've seen how your parents treat Lily compared to our kids. It's not right, and I've told you that before." This was unexpected. Jeff had always seemed like a passive participant in family dynamics, present but uninvolved. "You've never said anything," I challenged him. "Actually, I have," he replied. "To Amanda multiple times. I've pointed out the favoritism, but—" He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "But it benefits our children, so who cares, right?" Amanda finished for him, her voice defensive but with a hint of shame I hadn't heard before. "It might seem to benefit them now," I said, "but what is it teaching them? That it's okay to bully others, that their worth is based on materialistic achievements?" As we talked, memories of my own childhood surfaced. I told them about the time I was punished for breaking a vase made to clean the entire living room on my hands and knees, while Amanda watched television. I was 8. The vase had been knocked over when our dog ran through the house, but I was blamed because I had been chasing him. "I don't remember that," Amanda said quietly. "Of course you don't. You were the golden child. You never had to remember the punishments because they weren't happening to you." Jeff sat down, looking troubled. "The twins told us something on the way over. They said Lily wasn't the one who broke the cup today." My head snapped up. "What?" "Apparently Tyler was throwing a ball in the house which hit the cup. They all agreed to blame Lily because they knew she would get in less trouble than Tyler would." The revelation didn't shock me as much as it might have once. "And our parents went along with it because it fit their narrative that Lily is the problem child." Amanda had the grace to look ashamed. "I didn't know about the cup. I was on the phone with a client most of the day." "But you've seen how they treat her other times," I pressed. "You've witnessed the favoritism and said nothing." She couldn't meet my eyes. It was easier not to rock the boat. Our conversation was interrupted by another call from our mother. I let it go to voicemail, but the message she left was telling more about how ungrateful I was, how they had sacrificed so much for me, how the money they gave me entitled them to parent my child as they saw fit. That's when another revelation hit me. How much do Mom and Dad actually contribute to my mortgage? I asked Amanda. She looked confused. What do you mean? They always talk about paying my mortgage, but I've never seen the actual amounts. They deposit money into my account each month, but I've never verified it against the actual mortgage payment. Jeff, who worked in real estate, looked thoughtful. Do you have your mortgage statements we could check? A quick search through my files revealed the truth. My parents had been contributing less than half of what they claimed about a quarter of my actual mortgage payment. They had been exaggerating their financial support to maintain control over me. This is unbelievable, I muttered, showing them the numbers. They've been holding this over my head for years, making me feel like I couldn't survive without them, and it's not even close to what they've been claiming. As the evening progressed, something unexpected happened. Amanda began to open up about her own experiences with our parents. Though she had been the favorite, she revealed that this came with its own pressures and manipulations. They pushed me toward Jeff because of his family's money, she admitted. They made it clear that my worth was tied to who I married and what social circles I could access. Jeff nodded. Your parents have very specific ideas about success, and they're not shy about using guilt and shame to enforce them. This conversation was the first time Amanda and I had really talked as adults, seeing our childhood through mature eyes. For all the privileges she had enjoyed, she too had been damaged by our parents' conditional love. Before they left, Amanda surprised me by saying, I think you're doing the right thing cutting them off, and I'll support whatever decision you make going forward. It wasn't a full apology for her role in the family dynamics, but it was a start. As they were leaving, Jeff handed me his card. Call me tomorrow. I have some ideas about your financial situation that might help. After they left, I checked on Lily, who had fallen asleep clutching Mr. Flops. I sat beside her bed watching her peaceful face and made a promise to myself and to her. This cycle of emotional manipulation would end with us. My daughter would grow up knowing her worth wasn't conditional on perfection or comparison to others. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. It was time to take control of my life and protect my daughter, whatever the cost. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of action and decision. The morning after the incident, I called in sick to work for the first time in over a year. This wasn't a physical illness, but an emergency of a different kind. I needed to completely restructure our lives, and quickly. My first stop was the bank where I had my mortgage. I brought all my documentation, including the records of my parents' actual contributions. The financial advisor, a kind woman named Sophia, reviewed everything carefully. Based on your income and credit history, you actually qualify for a refinance at a better rate than your current mortgage, she explained, surprising me. The market has shifted since you first purchased your home. Really? Even as a single-income household? I had always believed my parents when they said I couldn't manage the house payments alone. Sophia nodded. Your consistent payment history and recent promotion work in your favor. Plus, property values in your neighborhood have increased, giving you more equity than you might realize. This was the first piece of good news in what would become a series of empowering discoveries. I hadn't realized how much I had internalized my parents' narrative that I was financially incompetent. As I was leaving the bank, my phone rang. It was my father, his voice immediately demanding and hostile. You need to apologize for your dramatic scene yesterday, he stated without preamble. Your mother is beside herself, and Amanda says you've filled her head with nonsense too. I'm not apologizing for protecting my daughter, I replied calmly, and Amanda can make her own judgments about what happened. This is exactly your problem, Tiffany. You've always been stubborn and ungrateful, after everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Dad? I interrupted. I checked the numbers. Your contribution to my mortgage is nowhere near what you've claimed all these years. There was a momentary silence before he changed tactics. We're family. We support each other. Your attitude is destroying this family. No, your treatment of my daughter is what's destructive. And until you can acknowledge that and make genuine changes, we need some distance. Distance. He sounded genuinely shocked. You can't be serious. Who's going to watch Lily when you're working? You need us. I'll figure it out, I said for the second time in 24 hours and hung up. Later that day, Amanda made a surprise visit to my house. I was immediately on guard, assuming she'd been sent as an emissary by our parents, but her first words surprised me. I told Mom and Dad I agree with you, she said, looking both determined and uncomfortable. They didn't take it well. She explained that after our conversation the previous evening, she and Jeff had a long talk about family patterns and the impact on all the children. The twins have been acting entitled and mean to other kids at school, she admitted. Their teacher called us in for a conference last month. I didn't want to see it, but they're learning these behaviors somewhere. As we talked, I realized Amanda was caught in her own version of our parents' manipulation. Where I received criticism and conditional support, she received praise and privileges in exchange for compliance and validation of their worldview. They're not going to change easily, she warned. They've already started calling relatives, telling their version of events. She wasn't wrong. By evening, I had received calls from 2 aunts and an uncle, all expressing concern about my mental state and suggesting I was being unreasonable. The family grapevine was working overtime to pressure me back into line. Meanwhile, Lily was showing signs of the emotional impact of her grandparents' treatment. She had nightmares that night, waking up crying and afraid she had done something wrong. I scheduled an appointment with a child therapist, Dr. Winters, who specialized in family trauma. Children are resilient, Dr. Winters assured me after meeting with Lily. But they need to feel safe and valued. The consistent favoritism and criticism she's experienced can impact her self-image and confidence. The doctor recommended weekly sessions for Lily and suggested I might benefit from therapy as well to address my own childhood experiences that were being triggered by these events. Breaking generational patterns requires conscious effort, she explained. You're doing the right thing by recognizing the unhealthy dynamics, but healing takes time for both of you. At work, I confided in my supervisor Nancy about the situation. To my surprise, she was incredibly supportive. Family comes first, she said firmly. Let's adjust your schedule to reduce your reliance on childcare. We can move you to the day shift rotation for the next quarter. Nancy also connected me with the hospital's Employee Assistance Program, which offered advances on salary in emergency situations and connected employees with legal resources when needed. My friend Sarah, another single mom from Lily's school, offered additional support. Lily can come to our house after school any day you need, she said. Zoe loves playing with her, and I work from home most afternoons. With each person who offered help and understanding, my confidence grew. I began to see that I had options beyond my parents' support options that didn't come with emotional price tags attached. The most difficult decision was financial. Despite learning that my parents contributed less than they claimed, cutting off that support entirely would still impact our budget significantly. I would need to make adjustments, find additional income, or both. I met with a family lawyer recommended by the hospital's assistance program. Ms. Rivera reviewed my situation and confirmed what I had begun to suspect: my parents had no legal claim on my mortgage or my home despite their financial contributions. Gifts are gifts in the eyes of the law, she explained. Unless there was a formal loan agreement or their names are on the deed or mortgage, they have no legal claim to your property. She also advised me to document all interactions with my parents moving forward, especially any concerning Lily, in case custody issues ever arose. I don't think it will come to that, she said, seeing my alarm. But it's always better to be prepared. Armed with legal advice and a growing support network, I made my decision. I would completely sever the financial ties that had bound me to my parents' control for years. It would be challenging, but the freedom and protection it would provide for Lily and me were worth any temporary hardship. I worked extra hospital shifts, built up an emergency fund, and researched every assistance program available to single parents. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one my parents didn't know about. I changed all my passwords and security questions, realizing how much access to my life I had unwittingly given them over the years. 2 weeks after the incident, I felt ready for a second confrontation, this time on my terms. I drove to my parents' house on a Saturday afternoon, bringing with me a folder of evidence, Lily's diary entries, photographs of a small bruise she had received when my father grabbed her arm during a previous visit, documentation of their actual financial contributions, and statements from my new mortgage refinance. They were surprised to see me, clearly expecting that I would have come to my senses by now and returned seeking their help. Instead, I laid out my evidence methodically, watching their expressions shift from confident dismissal to defensive anger. "This is ridiculous," my mother sputtered. "We've only ever wanted what's best for Lily." "What's best for her is to be treated with respect and kindness," I replied. "The same things every child deserves." My father attempted to regain control of the conversation, falling back on his usual tactics. "You're being dramatic as usual. Lily needs discipline. She needs structure." "What she needs is not to be called a useless brat by her grandfather," I countered. "What she needs is not to be punished for accidents while her cousins get away with intentional misbehavior." The confrontation escalated when the twins and Amanda arrived unexpectedly. Tyler and Madison had never seen their grandparents challenged before, and they watched wide-eyed as my mother's carefully maintained composure crumbled. "After everything we've done for you," she cried, her voice rising to a pitch I rarely heard. "This is how you repay us, by turning everyone against us." "I'm not turning anyone against you," I said calmly. "I'm simply stating facts and establishing boundaries." I handed them an envelope containing a certified check for the total amount they had contributed to my mortgage over the past year. "This repays your recent financial support. I've refinanced my mortgage and no longer need or want your assistance." My father stared at the check, then at me, seeming genuinely shocked that I had managed this on my own. "You'll regret this," he said, but his voice lacked its usual authority. "When things get tough, don't come crawling back." "That's not going to happen," I assured him. "I'd rather work 3 jobs than subject Lily to the kind of conditional love you've offered." As we were leaving, Amanda pulled me aside. "What you're doing takes courage," she said quietly. "I'm not sure I could do it." "You don't have to cut them off completely," I told her. "But you might want to pay attention to how they treat your children and what lessons Tyler and Madison are learning." In the car on the way home, Lily asked, "Are we never going to see Grandma and Grandpa again?" It was a complex question that deserved a thoughtful answer. "Right now, we need some space from them," I explained. "Sometimes adults need to learn better ways to treat each other, just like kids do. If Grandma and Grandpa learn to be kinder and more respectful, maybe we can visit sometimes in the future." She nodded solemnly, seeming to understand more than a 6-year-old should have to. "I like it better when people don't yell and compare." "Me too, sweetheart," I agreed, reaching back to squeeze her hand. "Me too." That evening, I received an unexpected call from Jeff, Amanda's husband. "I heard about what happened today," he said. "Amanda's upset, but I think you did the right thing." He then made an offer that surprised me. "If you need financial help during the transition, I can provide a personal loan. No strings attached, reasonable interest rate, formal paperwork, so there's no confusion about terms." His offer was generous, but I was hesitant to accept help from anyone connected to my parents. "Thank you, but I think we'll be okay. The refinance gave us some breathing room." "The offer stands if you change your mind," he said. "And for what it's worth, I think you're making the twins realize some important things about how their grandparents operate. Madison asked me today why Grandpa is nice to her, but mean to Lily. Children often see truth more clearly than adults give them credit for. The fact that Madison was questioning the favoritism gave me hope that perhaps the next generation might break these patterns even further. That night, I involved Lily in some of our decisions about our new life. While I wouldn't burden her with financial details, I wanted her to have age-appropriate control over things that affected her. "Would you like Sarah to pick you up from school on my late days, or would you prefer the after-school program?" I asked. "Sarah's house," she said immediately. "Zoe has a hamster we can play with." Small choices, but important ones. Each decision was a brick in the foundation of her confidence and security, a reminder that her voice mattered. As we cuddled together reading bedtime stories, I looked around our modest home with new eyes. It wasn't fancy like Amanda's house. We didn't have the latest gadgets or designer clothes, but we had something more valuable: the freedom to define success and happiness on our own terms. Mommy, Lily mumbled sleepily. Are we going to be okay without Grandma and Grandpa's help? Yes, sweetheart, I answered with complete conviction. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be fantastic. And for the first time in years, I truly believed it. 6 months can change everything. Half a year after that fateful day when I saw my parents screaming at Lily, our lives had transformed in ways I never imagined possible. The promotion I'd been hoping for at the hospital finally came through. After years of taking extra shifts and proving my dedication, I was named nurse manager of my unit. The position came with better hours and a significant salary increase, easing our financial situation considerably. Lily flourished in her therapy sessions with Dr. Winters. Week by week, I watched her confidence grow. She began speaking up more in school, making new friends, and expressing her feelings instead of hiding them. Ms. Jenkins says I'm really good at science experiments, she announced one day after school, referring to her first-grade teacher. She let me be the helper and show everyone how to make the volcano erupt. These small victories might seem insignificant to some, but to me they represented monumental progress. The Lily from 6 months ago would have been too afraid of making mistakes to volunteer as a helper. Our relationship with Amanda evolved in unexpected ways. Without our parents' influence constantly dividing us, we began to forge a genuine sisterly bond for perhaps the first time in our lives. She started inviting us for casual dinners at her house without the pressure of our parents' presence. The twins miss Lily, she explained during one such invitation. And honestly, I miss you too. Those dinners were awkward at first, with Tyler and Madison unsure how to interact with their cousin in this new dynamic. But children adapt quickly, and soon they were playing together more naturally with Amanda and I, ensuring fairness and kindness prevailed. I told the twins about how Grandma and Grandpa treated you differently when we were kids, Amanda confided one evening while we watched the children play. I explained that it wasn't fair and that's why they don't see them as often now. How did they take it? I asked. Better than I expected. Madison actually said it made sense because she noticed Grandpa was always harder on Lily. Kids see more than we give them credit for. My parents predictably didn't accept our new boundaries gracefully. Their attempts to regain control evolved through several phases. First came the gifts. Expensive toys for Lily left on our doorstep a series of checks made out to me that I promptly returned uncashed. When gifts didn't work, they moved to manipulation, attempting to use extended family members as messengers and guilt enforcers. Aunt Helen called to tell me my mother was crying herself to sleep over not seeing her granddaughter. Uncle Robert suggested I was being vindictive and punishing everyone for a simple misunderstanding. I remained firm but polite with all of them. I'm doing what's best for my daughter, became my mantra. When my parents are ready to respect our boundaries, we can discuss supervised visits. When manipulation failed, anger took its place. My father left voicemails demanding I stop this nonsense immediately and threatening various consequences, from writing me out of their will to telling my employers about my unstable behavior. I documented everything following my lawyer's advice, but refused to engage. Throughout this challenging time, we found support in unexpected places. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, became a surrogate grandmother figure to Lily. A retired elementary school teacher, she delighted in helping with homework and sharing stories of the olden days that fascinated my daughter. Dr. Williams, a geriatrician at the hospital, took a grandfatherly interest in us after hearing about our situation from Nancy. He invited us to the hospital's family picnics and holiday celebrations, making sure Lily felt included in these community events. Family isn't just about blood, he told me during one such gathering. It's about who shows up consistently with love and respect. The transformation in Lily was the most remarkable change of all. The fearful child who had been afraid to speak up or make mistakes blossomed into a confident little girl who wasn't afraid to try new things. Her therapist noted the dramatic improvement in her self-esteem and emotional regulation. She's developing healthy boundaries, Dr. Winters observed during one of our parent consultations. She told me last week that a friend at school was being bossy, and she said, I don't like when you tell me what to do all the time. Can we take turns deciding? This simple assertion of her needs brought tears to my eyes. My daughter was learning lessons at 6 that had taken me 34 years to understand. 1 year after the incident, we held a special dinner to celebrate what Lily called our family anniversary. She helped plan the menu and make the invitations, which we sent to the people who had supported us throughout the year: Sarah and Zoe, Mrs. Jenkins, Dr. Williams, Amanda, and her family Nancy, from the hospital, and a few others who had become our chosen family. Our small house was crowded and noisy that evening, filled with laughter and conversation. As I looked around at the diverse group of people who had stepped up to support us, I realized we had created something beautiful from a painful situation. During the dinner, Lily asked if she could make a speech. Standing on a chair holding a juice box as if it were a champagne flute, she said, "Thank you everybody for being nice to me and my mom. We are happy now because we know that family means people who love you even when you make mistakes." Several of the adults discreetly wiped away tears at her simple but profound statement. Later that week, I received a letter from my parents. Unlike their previous communications, this one seemed different from the first sentence. The tone was reflective rather than demanding, with an acknowledgement that perhaps we have been too rigid in our expectations. They expressed a desire to reconnect, to meet on neutral ground with a family therapist present. They didn't use the word apology, but the admission that they may have handled things poorly was the closest they had ever come to acknowledging fault. I didn't respond immediately. This required careful consideration, consultation with Lily's therapist, and a thoughtful discussion with Lily herself. I had promised myself that any decisions about reconnecting would include her input at an age-appropriate level. "Would you like to see Grandma and Grandpa someday with me right there and a special doctor to help everyone talk nicely?" I asked her. She thought about it seriously, her small face contemplative. "Maybe someday, but not yet. I still get scared thinking about them sometimes." I honored her timeline, responding to my parents that we would consider meeting with a therapist present in the future, but we needed more time. To my surprise, they accepted this boundary without argument, perhaps finally understanding that their relationship with us was a privilege, not a right. My own therapy journey had been as important as Lily's. Working with Dr. Carter, I had begun addressing the deep wounds of my childhood, understanding how they had shaped my adult choices and relationships. I had spent so many years seeking my parents' approval that I had internalized their critical voice. "The goal isn't to eliminate your parents from your life, unless that's what you truly want," Dr. Carter explained. "The goal is to change your relationship with them, so it's healthy for everyone involved." One evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, she asked a question that showed just how much she had processed over the year. "Mommy, why were Grandma and Grandpa so mean to me, but nice to Tyler and Madison?" I considered how to answer truthfully while keeping it age-appropriate. Sometimes adults have wrong ideas about how to treat children. They thought being strict and critical would make you stronger, but really it just hurts feelings. And sometimes people favor certain people without realizing how unfair it is. She nodded thoughtfully. "Like when Jacob at school only lets certain kids play with his toys." Exactly like that. But the important thing to remember is that it was never your fault. You deserve to be treated kindly all the time, just like everyone does. "Even Grandma and Grandpa?" she asked. Her capacity for compassion amazed me. Yes, even them. We can treat people kindly while still not letting them hurt us. In the quiet of her room, surrounded by the stuffed animals and books she loved, I reflected on the journey we'd taken. The financial challenges had been real, requiring sacrifice and creativity to overcome. There had been nights when I questioned my decision, wondering if I had done the right thing by cutting off my parents' support. But watching my daughter sleep peacefully, free from the fear of criticism and comparison, I knew with absolute certainty that I had made the right choice. The price of financial assistance had been too high when it came at the cost of her self-worth. I had learned that true independence wasn't about doing everything alone. It was about choosing interdependence with people who respected your boundaries and supported your growth. Our new extended family of friends and colleagues provided help without strings attached, love without conditions, support without control. The most profound realization was that protecting Lily had healed something in me as well. Standing up for her gave me the courage to finally stand up for myself, to recognize that I too deserved respect and unconditional love. Sometimes protecting someone else gives you the courage to finally protect yourself. As for my parents, only time would tell whether they could truly change the patterns of a lifetime. I remained cautiously open to the possibility of a new relationship with them, one built on mutual respect rather than control and dependence. But I no longer needed their approval to feel worthy. My worth as a person, as a nurse, as a mother, came from within now, and that was the most valuable lesson I could pass on to my daughter. Looking back on that moment when I stood outside the kitchen window watching my parents scream at my daughter while my sister's children laughed, I now recognize it as the turning point it was. In their cruelty, they had inadvertently given me the greatest gift, the strength to break free. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect someone you love? How did you find the strength to stand up against family pressure or manipulation? Please share your experiences in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to follow my healing journey. Remember, sometimes the family we create is more important than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to set boundaries where needed in your own life.